Okay, what if I told you that by getting just 1% better every single day, you could be 37 times better by this time next year? I know, it sounds kind of crazy, right? Like way too good to be true. But that's the core idea behind one of the most powerful self-improvement books out there, Atomic Habits by James Clear. So let's really dive in and see how these tiny, tiny changes can actually lead to some seriously remarkable results. Now, you might think a book like this starts in a science lab or with some big study, but nope. The whole philosophy of Atomic Habits, it actually begins with a moment of shocking violence. It was the last day of his sophomore year of high school, and James Clear was hit squarely in the face by a stray baseball bat. And this wasn't just a minor injury. The bat crushed his nose, it shattered both of his eye sockets, and it caused multiple skull fractures. The brain swelling got so bad he had to be put into a medically induced coma. I mean, it was absolutely catastrophic. But this single devastating event, it's what would unexpectedly set him on the path to figuring out how to rebuild a life, one tiny piece at a time. So, to really get the power of these atomic habits, you have to understand just how far down he was. You have to appreciate the depths he had to climb out of. This was not some quick, miraculous recovery. It was a slow, painful, grinding crawl back to just being normal. Yeah, this was anything but quick. Just look at this timeline. When he finally woke up from that coma, the damage was, wow. He'd lost his sense of smell, his vision was messed up, and one of his eyeballs was literally bulging out of its socket. For months, all he could do was practice basic things, like walking in a straight line. Then, a year later, another blow. He gets cut from the varsity baseball team. Just humiliating. But then, look at the end of this journey. 6 years after that accident, he is named the top male athlete at his entire university. The question is obvious, right? How on earth do you get from there to here? The secret? There was no secret. There wasn't one big dramatic moment of transformation. His comeback started in college, and it started with habits that were so small they almost seemed ridiculous. We're talking about things like just keeping his room tidy, or developing slightly better study habits. He started lifting weights, but only a few times a week. Each one of these tiny wins gave him back a little bit of control, and slowly, so slowly, he started to rebuild his confidence. And that's when he figured it out. You don't need some heroic effort to change your life. You just need to be consistent. And this is where his personal journey starts to reveal something universal, a mathematical truth, really. It's this idea he calls the aggregation of marginal gains, and it's a total game changer. Okay, so what is an atomic habit anyway? Well, the word atomic is kind of perfect because it has two meanings. First, atomic means super, super tiny, like an atom. But second, and this is the aha moment, it also refers to the source of immense, incredible power, like in an atomic explosion. So an atomic habit is just that, a tiny little practice that's also the fundamental building block for a massive system of success. And this is where the math just gets mind-blowing. That little 1% improvement every day, it doesn't just add up. Oh no, it compounds. So after a full year, you're not just 365% better. You're almost 37 times better. That is the explosive, incredible power of compounding. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. This principle is a double-edged sword. It works in both directions. Getting 1% better every day makes you exponentially better, yeah. But getting 1% worse, making that one slightly bad choice, skipping that one small practice, that compounds just as powerfully in the wrong direction, eroding your progress until you're left with practically zero. It just goes to show you, our tiny daily choices are what really truly define where we end up. Okay, so we get the why. The math makes sense, but what about the how? How do we actually build these good habits and, just as importantly, break the bad ones? Well, Clear says that every single habit we have, good or bad, follows the exact same 4-step loop in our brains. And this is it, the habit loop. First, there's a cue. That's the trigger. Think about your phone buzzing. That cue leads to a craving, the motivation. You get this little urge to see who messaged you. The craving drives the response, which is the actual action. You pick up the phone. And finally, you get the reward, the satisfaction of reading the message. Cue, craving, response, reward. This simple loop runs on autopilot for literally everything we do, all day long. So, if we want to change our behavior, all we have to do is hack this loop. And Clear gives us the perfect toolkit, the 4 laws of behavior change. And look how neatly this works. Each law maps directly onto one step of that loop. To build a good habit, you just make the cue obvious, the craving attractive, the response easy, and the reward satisfying. And if you want to break a bad habit, you just flip it. You do the exact opposite. So what does this look like in the real world? It's actually super simple. You want to read more? Okay, law 1, make it obvious. Literally leave a book on your pillow. You can't miss it. Need to exercise? Law 2, make it attractive. Try temptation bundling. Tell yourself you can only listen to your favorite podcast while you're at the gym. Want to meditate? Law 3, make it easy. Use the 2-minute rule. Just start with meditating for 2 minutes. Anyone can do that. And finally, law 4, make it satisfying. Get a habit tracker and check off that box. Or try the paperclip strategy he talks about. Move one paperclip from a full jar to an empty one. It gives your brain that little hit of, I did it. Now this whole system of piling up these tiny advantages, this isn't just some theory for your personal life. It's actually the exact strategy that was used to create one of the most dominant dynasties in the history of modern sports. Let's talk about British cycling. Back in 2003, they were a joke, a total laughingstock. In their entire 100-year history, they'd only won a single Olympic gold medal. They'd never, not once, won the Tour de France. They were so bad that one of the top bike manufacturers actually refused to sell them bikes because they were afraid it would make their brand look bad. Ouch. But then they hired a guy named Dave Brailsford, and he came in with this wild philosophy he called the aggregation of marginal gains. The idea was simple. If they could just find a 1% improvement in every single thing they did, all those little gains would add up to something huge. So they started with the obvious stuff. They redesigned the bike seats to be more comfortable. They roped alcohol in the tires for better grip. They tested fabrics in a wind tunnel for better aerodynamics. But here's where it got crazy. They didn't stop there. They went into this obsessive level of detail, looking for 1% wins in places nobody else would even think to look. They tested different massage gels to see which one led to the fastest muscle recovery. They hired a surgeon to teach the riders the proper way to wash their hands to avoid colds. They even painted the inside of the team truck bright white, just so they could spot tiny specks of dust that might mess with the finely tuned bikes. And the results? They were staggering. Within 5 years, they absolutely dominated the Beijing Olympics, and then they went on to win the Tour de France again and again and again. And this really brings home one of the most profound lessons in the whole book. See, the British cyclists always had the goal to win. I mean, every team has that goal, right? The goal wasn't what changed. What changed was their system. They stopped focusing on the finish line and started focusing on building a system of continuous, tiny improvements. And it was the system, not the goal, that delivered those incredible results. But there's still one more level to this, a final, even deeper layer to making change that actually sticks. Because it's not just about what you do, it's about who you believe you are. James Clear says to think of behavior change like an onion. On the outside layer, you have your outcomes. That's the result you want, like losing weight. The next layer in is your processes. That's your system, like your workout routine. But at the very core of the onion, the deepest, most powerful layer is your identity. That's what you believe about yourself. And real, lasting change, it has to start from the inside and work its way out. And this right here shows that critical shift in thinking. Most of us start with a goal, right? We say, I want to run a marathon. But an identity-based approach totally flips that on its head. It starts with, I am a runner. The goal isn't about the outcome. It's about who you are becoming. The focus shifts from something temporary you want to achieve to a permanent part of who you are. And this, for me, is the most powerful idea in the entire book. Every single action you take is like a vote for the type of person you want to become. Every time you lace up your shoes and go for a run, you're casting a vote that says, I am a runner. Every time you write just one page, you're casting a vote for, I am a writer. Your habits are literally the path to changing your identity. These small actions aren't just about getting more stuff done. They are about becoming more. So ultimately, the book leaves us with this really powerful question. The goal isn't to read a book, it's to become a reader. The goal isn't to run a marathon, it's to become a runner. It's not about the one-time achievement, it's about the person you're becoming with every single tiny action. So, take a second and ask yourself, who do you want to become?